Now, the King's niece, Lady Louise Windsor, reportedly aspires to become the first female royal to serve in the military since the late Queen. She's even put it on her LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, she's 20 years of age. Currently, she's a member of the University Officers Training Corps at St Andrews.
Yes, she aims to emulate the military service of her own father, Prince Edward, and other male relatives.
Which I find strange because his military service was a complete disaster.
4 months or something, wasn't it, before he pulled out?
With the Royal Marines, and it wasn't for him. So interesting that he's supporting his daughter, if she's going for that. Question is, should royal children be, well, almost forced, should it be part of their duty to serve in the military?
Well, to debate this, we're joined by the Defence Analyst and former British Army Office Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Crawford and the Royal Commentator Richard Fitzwilliams. Let's get the military perspective, first of all, then, from you, Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Crawford. Should they be forced?
Well, as someone who actually commanded a university officer training corps, the Edinburgh University Officer Training Corps, I have great affection and respect for those institutions. However, I think that forced is probably too rigid. I would say strongly encouraged, because there's a lot that they can learn from serving in the Officer Training Corps. Plus, of course, they get paid, and they generally have the cheapest bars in any university in the land. So not forced, but encouraged, because I think there's a lot to be learned from serving in the cadet forces. And there's no compulsion to join the regular armed forces afterwards. So it's really a university-only thing.
Richard, if she was to join the armed forces afterwards, how do you think that goes down with the members of the public? Do they look and say, well done her, she's got herself a job?
Well, I'm assuming that if she were to join the armed forces, and particularly the army afterwards, she would probably try to present herself at Sandhurst and undergo officer training. Now, that's no mean feat, having been through it myself and hated every minute of it because I found it very tough. It does benchmark you and benchmarks your character. So I think that a certain amount of admiration should go towards her if that's the path that she chooses. And of course, if she's determined to succeed, then I'm sure she'd be a great asset to the army, no matter which arm or service that she might choose to join.
What do you think, Richard?
Well, I think that the link, and I'm sure we'd all agree on this, between the royal family and the armed forces is absolutely pivotal because, the king as commander-in-chief, this is such a pivotal role because, of course, it's not so much the power he has, but the power denied to others and members of the royal family. For example, if we look back to Lady Louise's grandmother, Queen Elizabeth, in the auxiliary territorial service during the war. That was, of course, very significant. And what we've got very clearly is the possibility of George, Charlotte and Louis joining in one capacity or another. But what is absolutely certain, I think, is that whether or not they actually decided to join, and that is up to each individual. No one should be forced, of course, that would be ridiculous, and certainly ridiculous today. But they would also have honorary titles. For example, you mentioned Prince Edward, the Duke of Edinburgh, that this was his stint in the Royal Marines was not successful temperamentally and for various reasons. It simply didn't work. But on the other hand, if you look at Prince William, if you look at Prince Harry, on this particular issue, I think Harry has always said that his stint the armed forces, 2 tours of duty in Afghanistan were the making of him. So I think it's a tremendously significant that they have links, whether honorary links or whether links in the field.
But in an increasingly volatile and uncertain world, lots of speculation about whether there's a big world war on the horizon. Is there a threat to our royal family if they are to be involved in the services? I think back, we talked about D-Day a lot with the anniversary this summer and how King George VI had to actually pull back from wanting himself to go across on D-Day. There is a concern about too much involvement from the royals when it comes to these sorts of crises, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely, because of course Prince William would have served in the front line if he could have, but it simply wasn't considered feasible. I mean, he put those with him in danger, and indeed, as you know, when Prince Harry was in Afghanistan, certainly the first tour of duty, he was pulled back for this very reason. What is important is the links, whether the links from the field, one thinks back, for example, the Duke of Edinburgh, or indeed you think of the naval service, George V, or indeed as Duke of York, the Battle of Jutland, George VI. This has been extremely significant in the history of the royal family going back hundreds of years. I mean, one thinks of Henry V at Agincourt, or indeed Elizabeth I and her Tilbury speech, and you get to 1743, when George IV was the last monarch to lead his army in the field. All of this is part and parcel of the proud military tradition of the royal family, and the links are so significant. But obviously, it depends on the individual as to whether or not they would wish to actually join. But there will be links, and those links will be treasured by the military and by the royal family.
So, gentlemen, just finally and briefly, royal children in the armed forces, necessary, recommended, or not necessary? Well, what's your view, first of all, Stuart?
Well, I think it should be recommended. I think they've got a lot to give, and they've got a lot to learn, and it's part and parcel of learning, if you like, the role of being a member of the royal family. So I would think it shouldn't be forced, but it should be strongly encouraged.
OK, and Richard?
Royal links to the military in one sort or another, absolutely essential, but certainly not necessarily if the personality of the individual doesn't suit it, not in the field. So it would be a link in one way or another, and that will continue, and it's invaluable, especially, and you mentioned the pressures on the military these days. They need all the spokespersons in one way or another. They can find in all sorts of, in all forms of life.
OK, gentlemen, thank you very much for your thoughts this morning on that. We open up the floor to everybody listening and watching at home. Let us know your thoughts. You can do that through our website, gbnews.com/your say. As for Lady Louise, what do you think? She seems a very serious young lady to me. I don't know much about her, but she seems
to do the right thing.
Serious, and I think on her. Let's talk about the royal relief, shall we, Claire? Apparently, the royal family should be extremely grateful that this paperback version of Spare that is due to drop 2 days before the King heads out to the Commonwealth.
Samoa, yes, indeed, in October.
Samoa, won't have any fresh whinging in it.
Do you know what?
Well, I find it amazing that they release a paperback that isn't updated. Everybody's paperback is updated from the hardback.
Yes, everyone's is, apart from Harry's. And it's not only the royal family that are quite happy that's not the case. I think I am too. And I think most of your viewers will be as well.
The Taliban, they might be relieved as well.
The Taliban.
You never
Who
know.
wants to read more doom and gloom with Harry and Meghan Markle?
But maybe this is a sign. Maybe it's a sign that they're starting to wind down. I mean, I could be talking, probably I'm talking utter nonsense here, but maybe they're learning that they don't want to keep upsetting the royal family and are just not putting any more nonsense out.
Why send it out? Why make it in a paperback
Perhaps.
if they're not updating the content?
Well,
Perhaps they're waiting for the next
another way to make money.
Yeah, or the next book is coming around the corner. Who knows?
But the whole thing is, it doesn't make money if it's not.
If it's not got new content.
No. Well, if you haven't got new content, why would you buy it? Why, you had a chance to buy the hardback. Why would you buy the paperback?
I always prefer a paperback because they're just less heavy. I hate a hardback. Does anyone else think that?
No,
You're
I do
lying in
get
bed
that.
with a
If you're travelling.
giant hardback. It's really not enjoyable.
And it's very difficult to carry it.
Yeah.
It's not very portable.
It's not very nice.
Nope.
So maybe just buy it because it's more portable. There we go.